Hi guys. What I thought I might do today is create a little digital landscape, and what we'll be doing here today is creating a digital painting of a landscape, and we're going to be doing it with just one or two tools, basically the brush and the eraser tool. So pretty straightforward, and let's get stuck in. I've got a new file open, and what I'm going to do first, I would suggest to unlock that layer. That'll give you full access to the layer and you'll be able to paint to your heart's content. So I'm going to set up my brush at the start. So I've got a nice regular brush, and I'm just going to check the settings, which I suggest you do every time you have a brush or you play with brushes. Now, I've made a whole video on brushes, and so hopefully you might have seen that before. So here's a bit of spacing. I don't want that, right? I just want a regular brush, and I want a nice soft edge of my brush. So I'm going to have a nice soft brush with a full opacity. I'm going to pick a nice background color. What I'm going to draw some mountains. So I'm ready to go. So I'm going to brush set up a nice soft brush, full opacity, and off I go. So here's my mountains. Okay, nothing very remarkable about that. Okay, but hopefully it'll get better. So big old soft swathe of colour through there. I'm going to create another layer, and this will be my foreground. This will be my foreground. I'm going to pick a darker colour here. So this is going to be a little bit darker, as colours tend to become a little bit more vivid as they come towards us. So here's my second set of mountains. This is going to be, go right down to the bottom here. Maybe I'll just drop that opacity down a little bit. Something along those lines. Doesn't matter too much. All right, so I've got a layer on top and a layer behind. Okay, pretty good. Two layers. So what we're going to do now is just, fill that in a little bit like that. Perfect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my eraser tool, E for eraser. Now, what you want to do with your eraser tool to give us this effect is we're going to get the eraser tool and change that sort of profile of that eraser, just so that that'll allow us to create, we'll be able to cut with that if you like. So I've got it nice and hard, size is what I want. I think I'm good to go. All right, now your brush and your eraser size both have the same shortcut. Next to the letter P you have a set of square brackets, and that will be able to change up and down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my foreground layer, and I'm going to get my eraser set up, and I can create this sort of mountainish hills or something along those lines. You know, there's my mountain range, if you like. Okay, that's the front one. So the one behind is the exact same process. Make sure you're on separate layers, and just carving out a little mountaintop or hillside or whatever you're thinking. So there's my little mountains. Beautiful, receding in the distance. Perfect. Okay, done deal. So what we're going to do is make a new layer, and I'm going to create a little bit of a creek or a river or anything you like that. And it's a new brush. B for brush is your shortcut, B for brush. And I'm going to set that up again. So I want a nice hard edge. I want a hard edge brush for this exercise. And I want him to be, whoops, I'm going to have him be, I want him to be sort of this shape. I want him to be a little horizontal, sort of a shape-ish, like something like that. That's probably good. Oops, and this is the brush now, so I'm going to pick a nice bluer colour. Maybe that might be my colour. Okay, and I've got full opacity. Let's make that full opacity. There we go. So I'm going to paint on my, this is going to be on the top layer. And I'm just going to paint through a bit of a water course. Maybe it's a river or a stream or something like that. And this is going to be fine. Okay, so whatever your creek or your river's doing, maybe I can sort of simulate a few little beds of weeds and things like that as I go along. So that might look all right. Okay, there's my sort of little river or inlet, something like that. So it's kind of cool. So there's my sort of starting point. So I've got 3 layers, and I've only used the brush and the eraser. And this is a good starting point. So there's my background layer, that's my mountains, there's my mid layer, and there's my sort of river layer, if you like. Just want to talk about the far mountain ranges. Okay, so I want to put some highlights and things on these guys. I want to apply some shading or highlights of that colour. So I'm going to pick up that blue colour. I'm going to pick something. I'm going to pick that blue colour. So with your brush in your hand, with your beaver brush in your hand, beaver brush, holding your finger on Option key will allow you to sample colours elsewhere in the scene. And that's just a really good way of sort of setting your colour very easily. So holding your finger while you have the brush selected on the Option key allows you to sample colours. So I want to apply a little bit of sort of highlights and shadings on my distant mountain. So I might just have a slightly lighter colour. Maybe it's snow, maybe it's something like that. So I'm just going to pick up there, and I'm going to get my brush. There we go. Get my brush, pick a colour, something lightish, something like such. And now what I want to do is I want to paint on those mountains. I want to paint on these mountains here. But what I can do here in my layers panel, I've got this little icon here that says lock transparent pixels. Now what that does, and I'm going to change that colour just so you can see what it does, something ridiculous. It's only going to allow me to paint on that colour. So it's actually a really cool little technique that I can use. I can lock the transparent pixels. So this way, I'm going to stay within the edges, if you like. So pick a slightly lighter colour. I'm going to say, okay, now I can just start to paint in some highlights for my mountain. So I might have a few little bits of shade. I'm just going to play with opacities, and opacities can be altered obviously at the top of your screen in the opacity bar, but you also can change them by the numbers of your keypad, 1 through 9 to 0. So having a smaller number, and I'm hitting 2 on my keyboard, I'm just painting with that much opacity. And this is a great way to build colours up. Okay, so I've got this going on. Maybe there's a bit of a highlight through here, a bit of highlight on the front of that mountain. Oh, there we go, looking all right. Okay, that might be some snow or some shade, and you can do the same thing for shades as well. So just get a few darks as well, and just introduce a few little shadows in your mountains as well. So that's kind of all right. All right, good, good, good. And the same can be applied of your sort of foreground mountains, these guys here. So we can do the same idea with that. So I've locked those transparent pixels, and I can paint in some sort of colours in here just to make it sort of give this thing a bit of form. You know, so looking for your highlights where the sun is casting. So you can have little bits of detail in here. Maybe there's a bit of a ravine, a bit of a valley, that kind of thing. Just building up some colour, so we get some tones in there, and you know, adding a few darks as we go. If we'd like, we can add a few darks in that same way. Maybe get some trees in the distance, some sort of trees, some ideas of that. It might be a bit strong. There we go. Building up some bushes and trees and things like that on the foreground of our little lake scene. There we go. A few bits and pieces. Okay, all right, I could go on for days with this, but just getting the ideas and the practices is, okay, that might be good. All right, so I can put a few highlights on my river as well. So maybe they've got a few spots on our lake scene. So I'm going to the lake here, so I could get a white brush and just pop some opacity up so you can see the things, and just pop some highlights in there. So I'm going to set my brush almost to a line. Just pop a few little dabs of light in here and there, where you might see a bit of highlight of the lake. Keeping playing with the opacities. Yeah, nice. That'll do for now. Okay, so there's going along nice. Next thing I want to do is put some grass in this scene. So I'm going to put some grassy little banks and things like that. So I'm going to get my brush again. I'll do this on the new layer. So new layer. I'm going to get a brush. Set up a nice, maybe I'll go slightly darker here. Okay, so I've got a darkish colour. Okay, I'm going to set my brush up to be more like a single blade of grass. So that's sort of what I'm after there. That's the idea. Maybe I'll make that fully opaque. So there's that's what I'm after. I'm going to set this brush up now. I'm going to get in close so we can have a good look at how I'm going with this brush. So there's my brush at the moment, like that. That's what it's doing. In my settings for my brush, we're going to play with some of these settings. Now, I want to have a little bit of spacing. And as you can see, if I play with spacing, I get this idea, which is kind of what I'm after. So I'm applying spacing to my brush. Now, for those of you new to Photoshop, these 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3 give you the most power with your brushes. These are the most important as far as I'm concerned. These top 3 are your go-to, so don't be too overwhelmed. So I've got our brush tape, got a bit of spacing. Second one, I want to have a bit of diversity in size of my grass. As you can see, as I change the slider there, not all of my grass shoots are all the exact same size. So that's what I'm after. I don't want perfect. I want it to be a little bit irregular. I'm also going to have a little bit of this angle jitter so that my grass is not all straight like a robot. It's all a little bit randomized. So I'm having a little bit of that. And maybe, thirdly, maybe just a little amount of scatter. So too much is too much. A little bit might be a good thing. So there's my brush. That's how I've played with that brush. So now I've got my brush set up the way I like it. And I'm going to create it on a, whoops, get out of there. I'm going to start to put a little grass in this scene. Now, one thing you can do also, we've got our brush set up. It's looking good. I might just revisit this one more time and talk about color dynamics. Now, color dynamics are kind of cool. So they are going to toggle between these foreground and background colors. So I'll just pop out of there. And I might change from this dark blue, I'm going to change this one to something slightly more green, something a little bit olivey, something like that. Maybe a little bit brighter. Okay, so I've got these two colors. In my brush settings, I have color dynamics checked, and make sure that this little button is checked. You want that. So that's now when I paint my brush, they're going to give me a little bit of variation in my color, and that's pretty much what I'm after. So I'm good to go. I've set my brush up. Now I can just start to paint my bank. A few little bits of grass and pieces, just putting a few bits here and there. Paint, 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 little bits of grass. More detail in the front, less at the back. You really want to have all your detail at the front. And the back's a suggestion, just a suggestion. So there's my grassy bank. Looking good. Might have a couple of little guys there. There we go. That's looking good. All right, so just introducing a bit of colour, a little bit of detail at the front. And there we go. Maybe I'll have a few over there, really just adding to my scene. Okay, that's my scene so far. All right, could do more. So what I want to do now is put a couple of trees in my scene. So what I'm going to do is go ahead. What I'm going to do is make a new file. So what I might do is quickly create a new document. Very quickly. What I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create a little tree. I'm going to draw one single tree. So I'm going to just do it with a regular, boom, 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 reset everything, regular brush, no spacing, just a regular straightforward brush. And when I do this, I want this to be black. So here, what I'm going to do is paint a little kind of a, I don't know, Christmas tree kind of thing. Just a little Christmas tree, just like this. Da-da-da. That's my tree. It's going to be a single tree. You could do any sort of tree really, couldn't you? But this is just, it's a bit of an alpine scene, so I imagine these are quite common in the Alps, maybe in North America, not so much here, but there's my sort of tree. That's it. You can see, just a suggestion, I'm not being perfect, making it irregular, making it fun. So there's my tree. All right, that'll do. I can go on for days with this, but that's sort of what I'm after. All right, what I'm going to do now is get a selection tool and just pop that around like so. Now, once I've done that, I can edit and define a brush preset. Boom. What we've just done now is created a brush. I have just created a brush. Whoops. So when we paint, we're going to get that. But obviously that's not what we want. Think about if I click once, I can just create these little brushes in my scene, which is going to be perfect for our scene. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer. Pop those up there. I'm going to pick some colours from the scene. Maybe I'll put a few in the background, just a little bit darker. Just a couple on the far bank. I'm just spotting a couple of times. Just changing in the far bank. There might be a few over there. Maybe there's a bunch of trees here. So over there, maybe I've got one or two closer in the foreground. So it might be one or two here. So I'm just clicking and spotting. I'm getting my scene starting to look all right, okay? Maybe there's a big guy there. And colours, as I said, colours as they come forward to you become more bright, become more strong and dominant. So the colours in the foreground are stronger and more colourful. Things in the background have to be softer to give you that illusion of depth. All right. So it's looking good. I could go on with this thing for hours. It's a lot of fun, this. But I'm going to put a sky in very quickly to finish this off. And what I'm going to do is get my crop tool, because I feel like I might want to have a bit more sky. So I've got my crop tool, and what I'm doing is dragging that up so I can create a little bit more dramatic sky. There it is, like so. Beautiful. Okay, new layer. That's your back. That's layer is at the back, so we can create our lovely sky. I'm going to get a brush tool, and I don't need my pine brush anymore. I'm going to grab a very standard soft brush. Okay, might pick up this blue colour, might do a blue sky, but please just do whatever you think looks good, guys. So I'm painting on my layer. That'll do. Might have a few more bits down here. Something along those lines. And you can change your brush size. You can get it to look whatever you like. And then break it up. Pick some other whites. White colour. I'm doing blue and white sky, but yeah, of course, colour skies can be any colour you like. Okay. That will do. All right. So look, and clouds will tend to get smaller as they recede to the distance. Clouds get smaller as they fade into the distance. So don't make your clouds smaller as they go down towards the bottom of the screen. That's that aspect of atmospheric perspective is the technical word for it, that things get softer as they go in the background. So look, there's so many more cool things we could do with this, but I just wanted to give you some tips and tricks how to work with this thing, play with it. You can't go wrong. We've done all this with one single brush, and it's just so many interesting things we can do with Photoshop, with the idea of digital landscapes. I've done that in about 5 minutes. There's so much more we can do with this, and I will see you all later. Thanks, guys.